Hi, I'm WTOP film critic Jason Fraley, and all month long we're ranking the best movies in every genre. 30 genres over 30 days, and today we're breaking down my top 25 drama movies. Now, of all the genres we've been breaking down, drama was the absolute hardest for me because there are so many. Literally, you could almost classify, if you look at the little theater mass of comedy and drama, so much falls into the drama side. So ultimately what we did to be able to fit more movies and kind of hash it out by subgenres in a little way, there's so many movies that got broken off into biopics and epics that you could have easily called dramas. But there's also, prison dramas like Shawshank that we put in there. There are family dramas like Ordinary People that we put in family. There's courtroom dramas, as you heard. There's crime dramas. There's all these subsets of dramas that made it really hard. So what I found is after I siphoned all those off, to full disclosure, fit more movies. What we were left with in this was a lot of, let's say, sort of the social dramas, these social mosaics of the world around us, a lot of the social commentary movies. They ultimately kind of were the leftover cream of the crop here. So I found that this category has a lot of movies like Robert Altman's Nashville, which follows about 24 main characters, and it's gonna be a little hard to watch when you first watch it, but I promise if you go back and watch it again, it says so much about the world we live in, and you see all those characters kind of showing up in the background, all 24 of characters. It's pretty crazy. I also have the guy Paul Thomas Anderson, who is most influenced by Altman's style, actually. Movies like Magnolia, which is another social mosaic out in LA with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Julianne Moore. So many great movies or stars. And then we have The Earrings of Madame Day, the Max Ophuls, and Alcazar Balthazar. I put those two back to back, Bresson's movie, because those follow an item in Madame Day's, it's earrings that gets passed around from character to character, or in the Balthazar, it's a donkey that's sort of, it's a Christ symbolism, but he gets passed around from owner to owner, inspiring Spielberg's War Horse. But those also fell in here. We also get other social dramas like The Rules of the Game by Renoir. We get Bicycle Thieves by De Sica, which launched the whole Italian neorealism age. Wild Strawberries by Ingmar Bergman, which I love. And movies like, even Hollywood movies like On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando being, I could have been a contender. You don't understand, I could have had class. It was you, Charlie. A lot of those movies, the social themed dramas, fell in this category. Now, in the drama category, we explored a lot of different social, political themes in these movies. For instance, issues of racism. I threw in Crash, which I probably shouldn't have beat Brokeback Mountain, which appears on another list later in our genre conversation. But I wanted to sneak it in here because it got us a lot of actors that we wanted, like Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle and Matt Dillon and Sandra Bullock and Brendan Fraser. Like, it was a way to group a lot of these guys in here, not to mention Luda. But yes, I think it's a little on the nose, but I wanted to drop it in here because sometimes those on-the-nose mainstream winners, even if it shouldn't have beaten Brokeback was more daring, but a lot of times those mainstream ones are what actually allows the mainstream to pull a trigger on Obama getting elected. Sometimes you need that mainstream movie. There's more daring ones like Do the Right Thing, which is going to appear way higher, so stay tuned later in the video for that. And then movies like The Help, which we get Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis, and also Emma Stone and Jessica Chastain. Like, God, look at all the future Oscar winners there. And Chastain still needs to win one. Also, we have, speaking of The Help, not just issues of race, issues of gender. Obviously, The Help dealt with that big time. But then we get movies like Zhang Yimou's Raise the Red Lantern, about how women are treated in Asia. We also get the Elements Trilogy, which is by Deepa Mehta. I don't know if you've seen Water and Earth and Fire and her trilogy, but there's a lot of issues about misogyny and even suicide. A very feminist trilogy by Deepa Mehta from India. And then Black Narcissus by Palin Pressburger, a British movie. It's set in a nun convent. So there's a lot of movies in here that dealt with female issues as well. And then also one of the big epidemics of our time, addiction. Those fell into the drama category. So we get movies like Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend, which was way ahead of its time, Best Picture 45, dealing with Ray Milland's alcoholism and sort of the withdrawal he has. It's pretty horrific stuff. And of course, along similar lines, Easy Rider, of course, probably one of the most drugged out road trip movies ever. Trainspotting, Danny Boyle's look at heroin addiction, which is just ravaging our country right now. This, of course, Danny's a British filmmaker, but Ewan McGregor is so great and young in this movie. It's fun watching how raw he is in this, but he's falling backwards through the floor. He's at the toilet. He's seeing babies crawling on the ceiling. It's freaky. But to me, the ultimate of those, Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. That movie, like just saying it gave me chills. That score, the da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, it's just epic. It's one of my favorite scores of all time. But I think they should show this in DARE classes. I don't even know if they still have DARE classes, but anti-drug classes for kids. If they showed this, granted a certain age, because it's pretty horrific with Ellen Burstyn and Wayans and Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly. Like there's so many people in this movie. But I think they should show it to scare people straight and not even try messing with drugs, because Requiem for a Dream scared the living crap out of me. Now, of all the great dramas of all time, how do you choose a top 3? And again, don't freak out. They're probably in another category if I haven't mentioned yet. So go search the whole PDF. But of all the ones that fell into the leftovers here, of the top 3, I went with number 3. I went with Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita, The Sweet Life, 1960, over in Italy. I think it's his masterpiece. I mean, you could say 8.5, which is probably his most personal. We'll get to that when we get to the showbiz list. But I just love La Dolce Vita. When I first think of a foreign flick, it's the first one that comes to mind. It dominated the award circuit when it came out, but so many iconic things in terms of international cinema, like Marcello and Anita Ekberg dancing in the Trevi Fountain in Rome. Even actually the biggest pop culture, I think, legacy is, you've heard of the phrase paparazzi, right? Well, that phrase didn't exist until this movie. There's a character who's a photographer, paparazzo, and that started in 1960, the entire concept of paparazzi. So TMZ and all you crazy guys, you're welcome for Fellini. He did it first. So I had to get him in the top 3. Number 2, one of my all-time favorite movies, and I actually think, yes, it's considered a great movie, but I still think it's underrated on best lists, which is why I have it all the way at number 2. I think there's so much going on. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. This is a daring, vibrant movie. Right from the beginning, Spike, I think it's his masterpiece. I mean, we get Malcolm X on the biopics list, but to me, Do the Right Thing is his masterpiece. Right from the beginning, it hits us right in the face with that Public Enemy song, 1989, The Number, Another Summer, Sound of the Funky Drummer, and I think, and you have Rosie Perez doing that pump dance and boxing in those like neon graphics. It really captures a time capsule of the late 80s, like that Fresh Prince neon graphic-y stuff too. But to me, it's the dramatic stuff. I mean, you have Mookie, who played by Spike Lee, obviously, in the pizza shop run by racist white Italians. They clash over, and what is it? The guy from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad is bugging out in this movie. I don't know if you remember that. Giancarlo Esposito saying, "Can't we get some more brothers up on the wall?" You get a young Martin Lawrence in a small role. You get Ossie Davis. You get Ruby Dee. You go back. You forget how many people are in this movie. Of course, Radio Raheem getting choked out. That's where the drama comes in here. And Mookie throws the trash can through the window and starts a race riot. And of course, Spike ends with the 2 quotes, one from Martin Luther King about, peaceful, nonviolent resistance, and the other one by Malcolm X, which is, by any means necessary. And call it a cop-out if you want. I don't think it is. I think it's like you choose. What is Do the Right Thing? So I want to hold it up here all the way towards the top of this list. I think it's great. Not to mention Samuel L. Jackson saying, he's the DJ spinning the tunes, and that's the double truth, Ruth, with which he says at the end of the racial epithet monologue or montage, where you have Spike, you have John Turturro, you have all the people from different races across Brooklyn on the hottest day of the summer in 1989, all looking directly in the camera as if looking to the listeners, the viewers, and saying all these epithets and it's equal opportunity. You notice Spike even has the black character saying the epithets. That's why I think this movie, it almost got a bad rap when it came out because of, I think like the LA riots came out right after this and Boys in the Hood. But honestly, if you go back and look at it, Spike is an equal opportunity offender here. Especially, look at the scene with the guy in the Larry Bird jersey and all the guy, Martin Lawrence and everyone in the Lakers jerseys are like, why don't you go back home? And he says, I was born in Brooklyn. So seriously, like honestly, I think anyone, if you want to say it's reverse racism, no way. It's equal opportunity, and I think it's Spike's masterpiece. I honestly I think I would have put it number one, other than the fact, the only reason I kept it at 2 is that there's so many comedic moments in it. It felt weird to have that as the top drama. So honest, but it's so good. And fun trivia, it was the Barack and Michelle Obama's first date movie. Their very first date, they went, they got the ice cream, all that famous stuff. But this was their first movie, and so it's so weird to see how a seed could be planted in 1989 that would blossom. And literally, 20 years on the day, 2009, he gets inaugurated. It's pretty wild. But number one, I toyed with doing Do the Right Thing. Instead, I went with Spike Lee's favorite movie and Oprah's favorite movie. I've heard her say it, Midnight Cowboy. It does a lot of similar gritty things for New York as Do the Right Thing, but of course it did it way first. It's the first, in 1969, it's the first and only X-rated movie to win Best Picture. Of course, because of the subject matter, it gets a little risque. But if you think you can deal with that, maybe not watch it with the kids around. But man, just the way John Schlesinger makes this, it's pretty masterful stuff. I mean, some movies are uppers and some are downers, and it definitely ends on a downer note. But this is the drama category; you'd expect that. The way he makes this, just by weaving in some of the flashbacks of Joe Buck's childhood abuse, it might help kind of explain the way he is. But you get this country bumpkin Joe Buck, played by Jon Voight, going off to the urban jungle of gritty New York City, where he meets Dustin Hoffman's Ratso Rizzo. And it's interesting, kind of, if you look at the way their lives have gone on. I mean, Jon Voight's become a very prominent conservative voice in Hollywood, and Dustin Hoffman, you'd think, is definitely way more liberal with Tootsie and things. It's almost, in a way, it's almost like this cross section of America that came together to make this movie about rural and urban divides, and they're living in those boarded up houses in New York City. But of course, right from the opening, that great song. Everybody's talking at me. Oh, I can't hear the word they're saying. It's so good. There's so much going on, even on his bus ride from the rural to the urban. I mean, there's a lot going on in this movie, especially if you didn't totally get it the first time you watched it. I mean, I'm the same one. I thought it was great, but only until you see it multiple times can you realize the level of the masterpiece and why people like Spike Lee and Oprah say it's their pick of their favorite movie of all time. And I guess we'll just end it by saying it also has arguably one of the best improvised lines ever. Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman walking down the street. All of a sudden, a car flies into the shot and almost kills them. Dustin Hoffman, without breaking character, he's still Ratso. He hits the car and says, "Hey, I'm walking here. I'm walking here." You can look at Voight's face, and he's kind of like, "Oh my God, do we keep going?" But luckily, Schlesinger kept it in. Directing's all about those happy accidents, right? And so you can see Joe Buck like, "Oh, do we keep going?" But Dustin Hoffman, the ultimate method actor, just keeps strutting and continues on. And there we go. We have one of the biggest pieces of movie history, quoted by Lieutenant Dan, a bit more ironically in a wheelchair in Forrest Gump, when he says, "I'm walking here." Obviously the irony. You ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan. But come on, Midnight Cowboy, the best drama of all time. See my full top 25 dramas on WTOP.com's entertainment page. Join our blog there and let me know what we got right and wrong. And tune in tomorrow as we break down my top 25 epics.